They brought her to kneel beneath his throne at moonrise. The great hall of Hyphen Keep glowed with torchlight and cold silver from the crescent moon pouring through stained glass windows. Wolf banners hung along the stone pillars, their dark fabric stirring in the winter draught. At the highest step, on the carved obsidian throne, the Alpha King watched in silence as guards dragged the bound Omega forward. Chains scraped over stone, metal rings biting at her wrists and ankles. A strip of black cloth blindfolded her eyes. "Prisoner," the herald called, voice ringing sharp. "Taken at the border shrine with rogue wolves. Unmarked Omega. Suspected spy. Ordered for execution at first toll." Rael did not need to rise to command the room. He sat straight, black armor and fur mantle turning his broad shoulders into a silhouette carved from night. Silver eyes, cold, lupin, measured the kneeling figure. Her scent reached him through smoke and fear, rain on ash, mountain wildflowers crushed under boot, the copper tang of magic. Dangerous. Forbidden. "Remove the gag," Rael said. His voice rolled through the hall like distant thunder. The guard obeyed. The Omega's lips parted on a sharp inhale, throat bruised where rope had been. She did not speak, did not plead. Her chin stayed lowered, blindfold hiding everything. Rael's law was clear. Rogue-aligned Omegas died. No trial. No appeal. The Pack Council, gathered at his right, waited like vultures for his nod. War pressed at their borders. The blood moon neared. Mercy had become a luxury. By decree of the crown, Varric, elder of the council, intoned, "This Omega will be put to death before dawn." "Do it now," Rael said, too tired for ceremony. The hall shifted. A sword hissed free. And then, softly, the blindfolded Omega spoke. "Rael," she whispered. Not his title, not "my king," but his name, stripped bare, the one no outsider knew. "Don't." Every sound in the hall shattered into silence. Rael's fingers tightened on the throne's armrest. No one outside his inner circle dared speak his given name, let alone a bound stranger. The guards hesitated mid-step. Varric's brows crashed. Rael rose. The simple act changed the air. The pack felt their king's wolf stir. Power rippled outward, pulling spines straight, lowering eyes. He descended slow, boots echoing on black stone, until he stood a breath away from the kneeling Omega. Her blindfold fluttered with each careful inhale. Her hands trembled in the chains, but her back remained straight. "Who told you that name?" Rael asked, voice low. "No one," she said. "I dreamed it under the moon goddess altar the night your father died." Prophecy talk. Dangerous. Convenient. Rael's lip curled. "You expect me to believe that?" "You expect me to die quietly," she replied, so softly only he and the nearest guards heard. "I'm trying to do something more useful." He smelled no lie on her, only fear, exhaustion, the strange wild sweet scent that needled his control. His wolf prowled restlessly, hackles high. "State your name," Rael ordered. "Lyra," she said. "Of no pack. Of no alpha. Of the moon, once." Varric stepped closer. "My king, this is a trick. Give the command." Rael's gaze never left her. "How do you know my name, Lyra of no pack?" "Because you are the one who will end me," Lyra whispered. "And the one I was bound to long before you ordered my execution." The words hit the hall like a thrown blade. Fated. Bound. Bond. Rael's wolf went utterly still. He should have laughed. Instead he heard himself say, "Remove her blindfold." "My king!" Varric started. "Now." The guard's hand shook as he tugged the knot free. The strip of cloth fell. The Omega lifted her face. Silver. Her eyes were silver, not soft, but bright as moonlight on ice, ringed in dark lashes, unwavering. For one breath the world narrowed to that impossible mirror. A pull tore through Rael's chest like a chain yanked taut from the inside. "The bond," his wolf roared. "Mate." "No." Rael stepped back as if burned, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Witnesses whispered. Moon marked. Omega. Faded. The word rippled. Varric's expression turned to horror. My king, she is unsworn. Rogue touched. This is exactly how the goddess tests us. Order it. Now, before she seals it. Lyra's silver gaze flinched from the elder, then returned to Rael. If you kill me, she said, calm through the tremor, Halden will take this as proof. The rival Alpha's name coiled like smoke. Halden of the Red Claw, gathering rogue wolves, claiming the throne weak. Proof of what? Rael asked. That you fear the bond more than you fear him, Lyra said. He will say you murdered your fated mate to feed your law. The hall reeled. She had spoken the unthinkable aloud. Rage flooded Rael. How dare she weaponize this twist in his chest? How dare the moon chain her in the South Tower? He snapped. Blindfold back on. No one sees her but me. Varric sputtered. Sire, the law. I am the law. Rael growled, alpha power slamming into the room. I will decide if she dies. As they dragged Lyra away, her head turned blindly toward him, as if she could still find him in the dark. Rael, she whispered again. And his wolf, traitor that it was, howled inside him in answer. The South Tower had once housed seers of the moon goddess. Now it was used for prisoners too valuable to discard and too dangerous to free. Wind howled around its height. The stone chamber at the top was bare save for a pallet, chains, and a narrow arrow-slit window spilling cold light. Lyra sat there, blindfold returned, shackles clinking softly as she flexed her numbed hands. She could taste the tower's history, ash from burned scrolls, old prayers baked into stone. She felt him before the door opened. An alpha's presence pressed through wood and iron, threaded with snow, steel, pine, and something aching under the armor. You should let them do it, she said as Boots approached. And this before it grows teeth. The door shut. Rael stood a few paces away. You claim to be my fated mate. No, Lyra said. The goddess claimed that. I merely suffer for it. He did not appreciate the honesty. You rode with rogues. I healed whoever crawled to the shrine, she answered. Pack-marked rogue, child elder. The moon does not check their brands before their blood spills. Yet they were Halden's wolves, Rael said. Some, Lyra allowed. Fleeing him. Lysant did not touch his nose. He circled her slowly. How did you see my name? I didn't see. I heard it. She tilted her face toward the window as if she could feel the crescent moon through stone. The night your father died, the goddess whispered, Rael will choose the blade or the bond. You are the hinge. I did not ask for it. You expect me to gamble my throne, my pack, on a whisper? I expect you to follow your own law, Lyra said. Kill me, and stand by it. Or break it, and stand by that. But decide, Alpha King. Hesitation is what will feed Halden. He hated that she was right. He hated the way his wolf paced when he stepped closer, desperate to touch, to scent, to claim. Rael stopped just short of her knees. I ordered your execution, he said harshly. And yet when you spoke my name, I stayed it. That is a weakness I cannot afford. Then sharpen it, she murmured. Turn me into a weapon or a warning. But stop letting them circle. The pack council circled. In the council chamber, beneath carved beams and a fresco of the moon goddess haloed in wolves, Varric slammed his fist onto the map table. If you keep her alive, Halden will use it. He will say you are corrupted. That your bond to a rogue-marked Omega proves his claim we are unfit. She is not rogue-marked, Rael said. We found no bond mark. No alpha claim. Yet she traveled with them. Another elder spit. She threatens the bloodline. The prophecy. Varric opened a weathered scroll, voice ringing. When silver eyes mirror silver, the throne will bleed. The air will fall. The blood moon will judge the king who chose the forbidden mate. We have twisted that verse for 2 generations, Rael snapped. It spoke of my mother long before me. The moon does not waste words. Varric insisted. Kill the Omega. Show strength. Bind the packs before the blood moon rises. Rylan, Rael's beta and oldest friend, leaned back, watching Rael with measuring eyes. Or keep her alive and gain the one person Halden clearly fears. He would not lash our borders so hard if she meant nothing. She knew my name, Rael murmured. Exactly, Varric said. She is a threat. Ryland shrugged. Or a bondmate sent with answers. Silence nodded. Rael's jaw flexed. Until the blood moon, she lives. She is to be contained, guarded, questioned. No one touches her. No one spreads rumors of fate. You defy counsel, Varric said. I obey the part of our law that demands proof before death, Rael answered. Unless you suggest we abandon that as well. Varric fell quiet, but Rael heard the promise of trouble in his silence. When the meeting ended, Rael did not retire to his chambers. He climbed the tower instead, every step fueled by a war he was not sure which side of he stood on. Lyra listened to his footsteps long before the door opened. The South Tower taught you to measure time in echoes. She sat cross-legged on the pallet, fingers resting lightly on the chain between her wrists, blindfold still wrapped over her eyes by her own request. The absence of sight made the pull of the bond easier to ignore. Barely. You return faster than I predicted, she said. You speak as if you've known me years, Rael replied, moving inside. I met you yesterday when I ordered your death. The moon introduced us earlier, Lyra said. I had time to form an opinion. He almost laughed. It came out a rough exhale. You claim Halden fears you, he said. Why? I helped a village escape him, she answered. He wanted their pups for blood rights. I broke his sigil on them. He would rather blame your crown than admit an Omega defied him. And why did you defy him? Because I could. Her voice sharpened. Because someone should. Because alphas like him and like you think destiny is an excuse for slaughter. You presume much of me. I know you ordered my execution without asking who I'd saved, she said. The words hit. He remembered the moment, how easily he'd spoken the command, numb from too many threats, too much war. Why the blindfold? He asked. You can remove it now. No. The denial was fierce. Looking at you once was enough. The bond already pulls. If I see those silver eyes every time you walk in, I won't be able to tell you to kill me when you must. His wolf snarled at that. I will not kill my mate. You might have to kill your king then, Lyra murmured. Because your counsel is sharpening prophecy like a blade. Rain lashed the fortress that night. Out beyond Hyphen's walls, rogue wolves howled, testing the borders. Halden's mark burned into trees. Raids on outlying farms grew bolder. In the war tent, maps spread under lantern light. Ryland traced patterns with his scarred hand. He pushes closer every night, the beta said. He's trying to draw you into open ground before the blood moon. He wants a spectacle, Rael muttered. If I step wrong with the Omega, he'll have it. Do you believe she's your mate? Rael rubbed at the tension in his neck. My wolf does. And you? I believe the moon enjoys cruel jokes, Rael said. But I also believe Halden is terrified of her. He calls her traitor in every message. Then she's leverage, Ryland said. Use it. Or let her go and say she escaped. But don't hover in between. Hovering is exactly what he'd been doing, caught between law and bond, fear and the quiet way Lyra's voice made sense in his head. Varric pushes for a public execution at the crescent moon, Rylan added. Says it will unify us. It will split us, Rael said. Half the pack will see a threat ended. The other half will whisper that I murdered my fated Luna to appease old men. He remembered the whisper in the hall. Halden will say you fear the bond more than him. Bring him a different story, Ryland said. One where you chose your path with open eyes. Rael left the maps unanswered and returned again to the tower, rain dripping from his cloak, storm wind at his back like the breath of the moon. You're soaked, Lyra said as he entered, though she couldn't see. She could scent wet fur, iron, pine, the salt of fatigue. Busy night, Alpha King? Rogues at the borders. Council snapping at my heels. You haunting my thoughts, Rael said dryly. I warned you. I am not a gift. He stepped closer, drawn, until he could see her face in the weak lantern glow. Without the blindfold she would have looked fragile. With it, she seemed like a seer refusing the world. Tell me why you called my name, he demanded. Truth. No riddles. Lyra hesitated. I saw two paths, she said finally. In one, you gave the order and the blade fell before I opened my mouth. Halden used it to paint you butcher. The pax fractured. In the other, you hesitated. You chose to listen, just long enough to see that killing me would be his victory. And how does speaking my name change that? It shamed you into pausing. He should have been furious. Instead, he felt a reluctant respect twist under his ribs. You play a dangerous game, he said. I am chained in your tower under sentence of eventual death, she replied. Danger is the only game left. Rael reached out before he could stop himself, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Her breath caught, the bond flared, hot and bright, snapping between their skin. Careful, Lyra whispered. Every touch teaches your wolf I belong here. He withdrew, pulse roaring. If Halden demands you, I will refuse. If Halden comes himself, she murmured, you will need more than refusal. The blood moon crept closer, a smear of red on the edges of conversation. Villages watched the sky. Wolves sharpened weapons and teeth. Halden's latest message came on the torn ear of a stag, pinned to Hyphen's gate. Surrender the Seer Omega. It read in jagged script, or watch your pack choke on prophecy. Varric slammed it on the council table. He fears her, yes, but he will break us to have her. Give her up, my king. Let the rogues tear each other apart. Rael's wolf lunged at the thought of giving her away. No. Then end her, Varric snapped. If you keep her, he comes for her. If you send her, he calls you weak. If you kill her, the whispers stop. Ryland's gaze was sharp. Or start. People already talk, Varric. They saw the chains, the blindfold, the way she spoke his name. Kill her now, and we only prove Halden's tale that we murder the moon's will. You would gamble us on accursed Omega? Varric snarled. I would gamble on my king's instincts, Ryland said. All eyes turned to Rael. His heartbeat felt like drum strikes. She is mine, he said quietly. The words shocked half the room, the other half had suspected. Fated. Chosen. I did not want it. I do not ask your blessing. I state a truth. Then we are doomed, Varric whispered. No, Rael said. But we are done hiding. Prepare the guard. Halden wants a spectacle? I will give him one of my choosing. Lyra sensed the shift the moment he entered. The air around Rael tasted different, resigned, sharpened, edged with decision. What did you do? She asked. I told them, he said. About the bond. Her fingers curled. Fool. Probably, he agreed. But I am finished letting others weaponize what is ours. She exhaled shakily. Then we are past the path where you kill me quietly. That path ended when you said my name, Rael said. He reached for the blindfold knot. She flinched. Don't, she whispered. If I see you, if I let this feel real, I won't be able to tell you to choose the throne over me. I am the throne, he answered. And I am already choosing. He slipped the cloth free. Lantern light met silver eyes. The bond arced like lightning, fierce and undeniable. For a heartbeat neither of them breathed. You are infuriating, Lyra said, voice breaking. Say my name again, Rael murmured. Rael, she breathed, and his wolf bowed inside him. He unlocked her wrist chains, though ankle irons remained. Her skin bore angry red marks. He touched one gently. Lyra hissed. You should have left them, she said. I will not face Halden with my mate in shackles. he replied. Tomorrow, before witnesses, I will offer you choice. Stand at my side and defy him, or I will find a way to hide you beyond his reach. There is no beyond his reach, she said. Only first blood. Then let it be his, Rael said. The next evening, as the half-formed blood moon smeared rust over the horizon, Rael gathered his pack in the central courtyard. Torches ringed the space, flames bowing in the rising wind. Warriors in wolf form paced at the edges. At his side, escorted by Rylan, Lyra stepped into torchlight. No blindfold. No gag. Simple gray gown, iron at her ankles, head high despite the murmurs. Gasps rippled at the sight of her eyes. Rael spoke so all could hear. This Omega was ordered to die by my command. Before the blade fell, she spoke my true name. A stir, that forbidden detail confirmed. She is my fated mate. He continued. The moon bonded us without our consent. Halden now demands I hand her over or be judged a coward king. Varric stiffened, some wolves snarled in alarm. Lyra's voice cut clean through the noise. I am not Halden's. I am not any monster's prize. She looked at Rael. And I am not your caller, Alpha King. The crowd fell still, caught by her audacity. Rael inclined his head. So choose, Lyra. Before them all. Do you stand with me, or shall I cut these chains and send you where neither crown nor robe can use you? She searched his face, the gathered pack, the moon staining the sky. The bond hummed, a live wire between their chests. If I run, she said slowly, the war follows. Halden will say you hid me. Your council will say you disobeyed the moon. Wolves will die chasing a ghost. And if you stay? Rael asked. Then we force the goddess to finish the story she started. Lyra answered. I stand with you. Her words fell like a gauntlet. Howls erupted, some in support, some in outrage. Varric shouted over them. You would accept this? A cursed prophecy made flesh? Ryland's voice snapped back. You'd rather crawl for Halden? Rael raised his hand. The courtyard stilled under Alpha command. Halden believes we fear our own fate, Rael said. He thinks we'll murder the moon's choice to keep old laws tidy. Instead, we honor the bond and face him as one. I did not agree to be honored. Lyra muttered under her breath. He almost smiled. You agreed to stand. Before more argument could erupt, a horn sounded from the outer wall. Short, sharp blasts, movement at the tree lean. The message runner skidded into the courtyard, breathless. My king, robes in the north ravine. Red claw banners. They're testing the wards. Halden did not wait. Form lines. Rael ordered, battle voice sliding over his bones like familiar armor. Rylan with me. Varric, secure the inner keep. Lyra. I go where the vision lies. Lyra cut in. At your side. You are not a soldier. I am the hinge, remember? Her smile was grim. If he wants proof I chose, let him see it. Every protective instinct in Rael roared, but he saw the truth. Keeping her hidden had only drawn knives in the dark. Let this be the moment they showed Halden who she belonged to. He tore the last of her chains free. Stay near me, he said. Try and stop me, she answered. The night outside the fortress walls smelled of wet earth, pine, and coming blood. The moon, not yet fully red, hung low, its light filtered through ragged clouds. At the north ravine, torches flickered, throwing long shadows over jagged stone. Rogues lined the opposite ridge, some on 4 legs, some 2. Their leader stepped forward, crimson cloak snapping, Halden, tall and brutal, scar slashing his lip, eyes ember bright. Rael, he called, voice rough as gravel. I smell your hesitation from here. Rael advanced with his front guard. At his shoulder, hood up, walked Lyra. You have something of mine, Halden said. An Omega seer. Moon touched. Surrender her, and I may spare your pups. Lyra's laugh drifted soft and cutting. She pushed her hood back. Silver eyes gleamed. You never owned me. Halden's gaze fixed on her. Hunger twisted his features. Little star. I burned temples for you. I know, she said. I remember every scream. Rael's wolf snarled. Only iron control kept his teeth from shifting. She stands with me, Rael said. By her choice. Your claim is ash. Halden lifted his hands theatrically. Behold the weak king, chained by a cursed mate. Hear me, High-Fen wolves, when their air chokes on prophecy, remember this night. I am so tired of men hiding behind riddles, Lyra murmured. Halden signaled. Arrows sang from the ridge. Rael shoved Lyra behind his shield as warriors raised theirs, a clatter of steel. Wolves surged, snarls ripping through the dark. Battle roared to life under the half-blood moon. Stay back, Rael growled. Too late, Lyra snapped. She dropped to one knee, fingers splayed against the soil. Moonlight gathered at her fingertips like liquid. The air vibrated. Mother, you dragged us all to this stage. Watch properly. A wave of pale light rolled from her hands, flickering along High-Fen's front line like a low tide. Wards strengthened. Arrows meant for hearts glanced off shields, their lethal tips dulled. Halden snarled. Witch. Seer, Lyra corrected. And very annoyed. Rael's wolf exulted. This was why Halden wanted her, this and more. But she was his. He shifted mid-charge, bones cracking, black armor shattering to reveal silver-eyed wolf form. He met Halden's lunging beast halfway across the ravine, claws and fangs tangling. Wolves clashed, mud churning, meadow forgotten. High-Fen and Red Claw tore at each other under a weeping sky. Lyra moved through the chaos like a lantern, lending strength where she passed, stitching flesh with moonlight, shielding pups, never straying far from Rael's orbit. Every touch between them, his fur brushing her hand, her power steadying his, tightened the bond until it felt like one soul split in two bodies. The skirmish broke before dawn, Halden's forces pulling back with snarling promises. Bodies lay strewn among broken arrows. High-Fen had held, but just. In the muddy aftermath, Lyra slumped beside a fallen warrior, hands shaking from overuse of power. Rael, back in human form, cloak soaked, knuckles raw, watched her mend a gash that would have crippled a lesser wolf. You pushed too far, he said quietly. Your wolves are alive, she replied. Complain later. Rylan approached. He was testing her, he said to Rael. Testing us. Next time he'll come with a full pack. And the moon will be red. We won't survive a full assault inside these rumors, Rael said. We need our house in order before then. Rylan's gaze flicked to Lyra. Then you know what you have to do. Lyra rose unsteadily. If this is where you decide my blood is too dangerous, at least wait until I've slept, she muttered. Rael stepped closer, cupping her elbow. The touch was both casual and claiming. That is not what he meant. Rylan crossed his arms. The pack is half in love with her and half terrified. If you're going to keep her, do it properly. Lyra stilled. What does that mean? Rael's throat worked. It means I should mark you before the blood moon. They stood later in his private chambers, firelight pooling gold on stone. Armor and mud gone, Rael looked less like a legend and more like a man carved from all the sharp edges of duty. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of the plainness of her gray dress, the smudges of dried blood on her skin. Marking me won't fix Halden, she said. It might make him worse. It will fix this. Rael replied, hand over his heart. The constant tearing. The bond pulsed at his words, answering. You think tying yourself to the cursed Omega in front of all your wolves is a clever plan? She asked. I think hiding from what already is has only fueled their fear, he said. If I mark you, there is no question whose side you stand on. No room for Halden's story that you were stolen. Lyra moved to the window, looking out at the dark forest. When the moon showed me your name, she also showed me a throne spilled in blood. An air crying red. I don't know if that is warning or inevitability. You still chose me in the courtyard, he said. I chose to stop running. She murmured, That is not the same as choosing to be Luna. He stepped behind her, not quite touching. His scent wrapped around her, pine, frost, smoke, alpha. Lyra, he said softly, I will go to war for you with claws out. But I will not take your throat without your yes. Bond or no bond. Silence hummed. Her heartbeat thundered in her own ears. Then give me until the blood moon, she whispered. If we live through it, if your people stand, if the goddess doesn't crush us for our defiance, ask me again. Agreed, Rael said. His hand brushed hers at the windowsill, the barest touch. Sparks skittered up both arms. Days sprinted toward the blood moon. Hyphen trained. Wards were strengthened. Messengers slipped through forests to allies. Stories spread faster than ravens. The Alpha King who spared his fated Omega, the blindfolded seer who spoke his name and stood against Halden in the ravine. Some called it madness. Some called it the moon's new law. Lyra moved now without chains, though always with a guard, usually Rylan, whose dry humor cut through tension. She tended to the wounded, listened to widows, soothed pups with stories of a goddess who could change her mind. Do you believe that? A young Omega asked her once, brown eyes wide. Lyra thought of Rael choosing her in the courtyard. I believe she can be surprised, Lyra answered. And that's almost the same. At night, Lyra and Rael argued strategy. She saw paths in half-sleep. He translated them to formations and supply lines. They fought, too, about risk, about destiny, about who was allowed near the front. Each argument only bound them tighter, like two sides of a thread pulled taut. One dawn, as they reviewed the cliff routes Halden might use, Lyra brushed his hand to emphasize a point. The contact lingered a heartbeat too long. This is getting harder, she said quietly. For me as well, he confessed. Good, she muttered, and he actually smiled. Varric was not idle. The elder gathered like-minded traditionalists in shadowed corners, whispering about cursed heirs and infected bloodlines. A small, fearful pack within the pack. To them, Lyra's presence was a crack in the foundation. One evening, as she left the infirmary, two young warriors blocked her path. Their scent stank of fear and arrogance. Moonwitch, one spat. If you truly care for our king, you'll leave. Take your omen with you. Ryland stepped from the corridor's shadows before she could answer, fingers on his sword. Easy. Beta, the other scoffed. You trust her over us? I trust results, Ryland said. She saved your captain's life last week. Lyra placed a hand on his arm. Let me. She faced the young wolves, chin high. If I walk away now, Halden wins without lifting another blade. Is that what you want? They faltered. Your fear is easy for him to use, she continued. But I am tired of being everyone's excuse. I stand here. With him, she added, nodding toward the upper levels where she knew Rael worked. If the moon wanted me dead, she's had many chances. Ryland smirked. Run along, pups. They retreated, shaken. You're getting good at this, Ryland murmured. I'm terrified, Lyra said quietly. Then you're exactly as smart as I thought, he replied. On the eve of the blood moon, snow fell in thick, muffling sheets. The world seemed to hold its breath under a red-streaked sky. Rael found Lyra standing alone in the inner courtyard, face turned up to the storm. She wore a heavy cloak, hood fallen back, silver eyes distant. Seeing something? He asked. Possibilities, she murmured. Too many. He stepped beside her, letting flakes melt on his lashes. Tell me the worst. You fall, she said bluntly. Or our child does years from now. Or the kingdom burns. Or nothing happens and all this fear was wasted. I don't know which vision is true, Rael. That's the cruelty of it. I only needed to hear one thing, he said. That nothing is fixed yet. He turned toward her fully. Lyra, if I die tomorrow, I want you to know, meeting you was not my doom. It was my deliverance from sleepwalking through a law written in someone else's blood. Tears blurred her vision. Don't talk like a man writing a farewell. Then give me a reason not to, he said, voice rough. Her fingers curled in his cloak. She rose on her toes and kissed him. The world narrowed to warmth and wolf and the dizzy rightness of home. The bond sang. His hands framed her face. Her body leaned into his like it had been built for that angle. It was not gentle, but it was honest. When they parted breathless, she whispered, "Live, and I'll let you ask again." He rested his forehead against hers. Done. The blood moon climbed fat and red over the forest the next night. Halden came in full force, a dark tide of wolves and war banners, drums like heartbeats shaking snow from branches. Haifen's horns answered. Torches turned the walls into a river of flame. The air crackled with fear, scenting sharp and metallic. Rael stood armored at the gate, Rylan at his right, Lyra at his left in a moon-silver cloak. The pack council arrayed behind, uncertain, trapped between prophecy and the immediate, very real threat. Halden stopped just beyond bowshot. His voice rolled up like smoke. "Last chance, Rael? Give me the seer, and I'll let your line crawl away." Lyra stepped forward before Rael could answer. "You sound very afraid for a wolf who claims I'm nothing." "How sweet," Halden sneered. "The curse speaks." Rael's wolf snapped. "You will not name her thus." "Oh, but I will," Halden said. "When the moon watches you fall for her." He lifted his arm. The red claw surged. Battle crashed like thunder. Wolves collided in the trampled snow, snarls shredding the chanting night. Arrows darkened the sky. Magic sparked as Lyra flung up wards, her hands blazing with moonlight, deflecting death from Rael's guard. Rael shifted, silver-eyed wolf tearing into the front lines. He fought toward Halden, every muscle focused, bond humming as he felt Lyra's heartbeat against his. Varric, sensing his moment, moved too. But not against Halden. He slipped behind Lyra as she knelt to shield a fallen warrior, dagger drawn, eyes wild. "Abomination!" he hissed. "This ends with your blood." Lyra twisted just as he struck. The blade scored her side, hot pain flaring. Her cry ripped through the bond. Rael faltered on the field, his wolf stumbling as if pierced. Rylan appeared like a storm, seizing Varric's wrist. "Elder," he growled. "Don't. She will doom us." Varric spat. "The air." Lyra pressed her glowing hand to her own wound, teeth gritted. "If you kill me, you hand Halden his victory. Is that the law you serve?" Varric hesitated, conflict tearing at his weathered face. Rylan wrenched the dagger away. "Help your king!" Lyra gasped, shoving Rylan toward the chaos. "I'll live." She forced herself upright, vision swimming, and flung her power back toward Rael. Halden saw Rael stagger and lunged, jaws wide. They collided in a spray of blood and snow. Rael's wolf reeled, the echo of Lyra's wound muddling his focus. "See?" Halden snarled, claws raking Rael's shoulder. "She weakens you." "No," Rael's wolf growled. "She keeps me standing." A surge of warmth flooded him along the bond. Lyra's power poured straight into his bones. Pain dulled. Muscles steadied. The moon's light shimmered over his fur like armor. Halden blinked. "What?" Rael drove him back, teeth at his throat. Through bared fangs, Rael forced human words. "You burn villages and call it prophecy. You torture pups and call it strength. You will not speak for the moon again." With a final, brutal motion, he ended it. Red spilled onto white. The blood moon watched, implacable. Across the field, red claw wolves faltered, their alpha gone. Some fled. Some dropped to their bellies in surrender. High-fen wolves howled, victory and grief braided. Rael shifted back to human, covered in blood and shaking. His first word was not for his pack. "Lyra!" He found her near the shattered inner ward, cloak soaked at the side where Varric's blade had bitten. She still stood barely, supporting a young warrior while weaving a final shield. When she saw him, she sagged in relief. "Good," she rasped. "You're too stubborn to die." He caught her as her knees finally buckled. Warm blood seeped between his fingers. Panic, hot and sharp, almost drowned him. "Stay with me," he ordered. "That's a command." "Bossy," she whispered, trying for a smile. Ryland skidded in beside them, panting. "He's down! Red Claw is broken." Rael only tightened his grip on Lyra. "Find the healers." She pressed her glowing palm over his hand at her wound. "Save it," she murmured. "They need you." "I can borrow enough." "You are not borrowing from me," he growled. "Too late," she breathed. Magic flared, knitting flesh roughly. The pain in his chest eased as if she'd siphoned it away. She slumped, unconscious but breathing. Rael lifted her into his arms. "I will finish this later," he told Rylan. "See to the prisoners. No slaughter. We rebuild differently." The beta nodded, eyes flicking to Lyra with something like respect. "Go." Lyra woke to twilight and the soft crackle of a hearth. The scent of wolfsbane-free salves and pine smoke filled the chamber. She lay in a bed far too comfortable to be the tower pallet. "You're awake." Rael sat beside her, stripped to a black tunic, shoulder bandaged. Exhaustion carved lines into his face, but his eyes were bright. "How long?" she croaked. "Half a day," he said. "I was starting to consider yelling at the goddess." "You always were bold," she murmured. He reached, hesitated, then took her hand. The bond thrummed, warm and whole. "Halden is dead. Red Claw scattered. Varric is in irons, awaiting judgment." A shadow crossed her face. "I didn't want him dead. Just changed. He chose his blade," Rael said. "Now I will show the pack another choice." Lyra studied him. "You didn't break." "You didn't either," he said. "Even when my law nearly killed you." A long breath left her. "We survived the worst of the vision." "Not entirely," Rael said softly. "There is one more piece." He rose, pacing once as if trying to shake off nerves. An Alpha King nervous. It was almost endearing. "When I killed Halden," Rael said, "I felt the moon watching. Not with anger. With expectation." "She does that," Lyra said dryly. "I realize something," he continued. "Prophecy is not a cage. It is a mirror. It showed us what we might become if we chose fear over love. Tonight we chose otherwise." He faced her fully. "Lyra, I would have you as my Luna. Not as penance, not as shield, but as partner. Marked before our pack, standing at my side as we undo the damage our forebears wrote into law." Her pulse skittered. "And if the air bleeds someday? Then we raise a child strong enough to choose their path," Rael said. "Together. Not as a symbol. As our son or daughter." He knelt beside the bed, not as king, but as man. "I ask with all I am. Stay. Rule with me. Laugh at the moon with me when she overplays her hand." Tears burned her eyes. "You're sure this isn't battle fever?" "Utterly." The bond sang, hopeful. Lyra exhaled. "Then yes, Alpha King. Rael. I will be your Luna." The marking took place not in secret, but beneath the open sky. The pack gathered in the moonlit courtyard days later, wounds bandaged, banners mended. The moon hung high and clear, pale instead of crimson. Wolves of Hyphen, and surrendered Red Claw willing to swear new oaths, stood shoulder to shoulder. Lyra wore simple silver blue, hair braided with a single white feather. Rael stood opposite, in black and steel, no crown tonight, only the weight of his choice shining in his eyes. Ryland spoke as witness. "Before the moon goddess and the pack, the Alpha King claims his fated mate, Lyra, as Luna of Hyphen." Rael stepped close. "Last chance to flee," he murmured. "Not even tempted," she answered. She bared her neck. His wolf surged, reverent. He bit gently, teeth sinking where flesh met fate. Pain flashed, then warmth flooded them both. A mark bloomed, silver and dark, shaped like a crescent entwined with a broken chain. Lyra, breathless, tugged his collar aside and returned the promise. her teeth grazing his skin until their bond sealed fully, two-way, equal, defiant. A hush fell. Then, slowly, wolves dropped to one knee. Some in awe, some in surrender to inevitability, some in weary hope. Varric, from his guarded place, watched with storms in his eyes. This was not the ending he'd wished for. But even he could not deny the steadiness that settled over the pack as the mate bond rooted. Rael took Lyra's hand and lifted it high. "This is your Luna," he said. "No wolf will call her curse and stand in my hall." Change did not sweep through Hyphen in a single night, but in many small ones. Laws were rewritten under Lyra's calm gaze and Rael's firm hand. No Omega would again be executed for the crime of being unclaimed. Trials required proof, not fear. The young warriors who had once called her witch now trained under a code that punished cruelty as harshly as cowardice. Lyra opened the tower where she'd been held and turned it back into a sanctuary, a place where seers and sensitives could learn to use their gifts without being burned for them. Sometimes she stood in the room that had been her cell and pressed her hand to the same bare wall. "I forgive you," she told the stone, not for it, but for herself. Rael caught her there one evening. "Talking to ghosts?" "Evicting them," she said. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Need help?" "Already got it," she answered, leaning into him. The bond between them pulsed steady now, less a roaring wound, more a shared heartbeat. They argued still, about tactics, about mercy, about how fast to change old ways, but their fights ended in solutions, not bruises. The prophecy of the bleeding air lingered like an old echo, but it no longer ruled their choices. When Lyra realized she was with child, fear did brush cold fingers down her spine. "What if this is it?" she whispered one night, Rael's hand resting over the new, soft curve of her belly. "What if the goddess cashes in every threat? Then we meet it together," Rael said. "And if she tries to take what is ours for the sake of some poetic line, I will remind her I am very tired of her scripts." Lyra laughed through her tears. "Blasphemy. Honesty," he said. When their daughter was born under a gentle crescent moon, she wailed healthy and strong. A thin scratch across her palm bled a single bright drop where she'd grabbed at Rael's armor buckle. Lyra froze. Rael kissed the tiny wound. "There. Prophecy satisfied." Lyra let out a shaking breath, then laughed, then sobbed into his shoulder. Their daughter blinked solemn silver eyes up at them, as if mildly offended at so much fuss. "If the moon expected tragedy," Lyra murmured, "she'll have to settle for this." "This," Rael said, cradling them both, "is all I ever wanted and never knew." Years later, wolves who had once spat the word curse bowed easily when Luna Lyra passed, children trailing behind her to hear stories of the days when law mattered more than lives. She told them carefully, never painting herself savior, only stubborn. "The Alpha King ordered my execution once," she'd say, tone wry. "He was very dramatic back then." Rael, overhearing, would grumble. "I recall a blindfolded Omega manipulating prophecy in my hall." "You're welcome," she'd reply. Their daughter grew wild and sharp, climbing battlements she shouldn't, arguing with elders she should, loved fiercely by a kingdom that had learned to see bondmates as blessing rather than threat. When Red Claw remnants stirred, they found no fertile ground. Hyphen's laws left little room for their poison. Wolves who might once have joined them chose instead to train under the Luna who healed without asking lineage. On quiet nights, when the torches burned low and snow softened the world, Rael and Lyra would return to the throne hall where it had begun. They'd stand at the base of the steps where she'd first knelt blindfolded, the ghost of chains clinking only in their memory. "Do you ever think about that moment?" Rael would ask. "When you ordered my death?" Lyra would say. "Frequently. It's excellent leverage in arguments." He'd huff a laugh, drawing her close. "I was a fool. You were an Alpha King who didn't yet know how to question his own law." She'd answer softer. "I was an Omega who didn't know love could be chosen alongside duty." He'd brush his lips over her mark. The bond would answer, steady and sure. "The goddess set us on a knife's edge," Lyra murmured once. But we decided which way to fall. We fell into each other, Rael said. Let her write songs about that instead. Above them, the moon hung serene, not red, not wrathful, a silent witness to a story that had defied the script without denying the sacred. The Alpha King who ordered her execution, and the blindfolded Omega who spoke his name, had remade a kingdom not by fleeing prophecy, but by forcing it to grow a kinder ending. Thank you for listening to this Alpha King and Omega tale of fate, defiance, and a bond strong enough to rewrite prophecy. If this story pulled you into its moonlit halls and blood moon battles, make sure you're subscribed and ready. More cinematic werewolf romances, forbidden dungeons, and destiny-twisting Omegas are coming soon. Close your eyes, rest with the pack, and I'll meet you in the next story under the moon goddess gaze.